I am Rob from Phoenyx Spirits. We used to say that our USP was heritage and heritage brands. Now we say our USP is using heritage, harnessing heritage to create innovation and disruption. And what that means, it means that we like to bring brands to market that can fundamentally change the way bartenders can serve cocktails and consumers will drink them. So that is our key thing, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So cool. So key thing is to identify exceptional brands, and we'll get into the liqueur and cordial piece as we go. So exceptional brands mean something you fall in love with. There's some magic, something esoteric that you can't quite identify, but you just know what it's going to be immediately. And therefore, you concept a modern proposition. Modern proposition, in our case, with Kush and Dr. Hostetter's, is liqueurs, bitter liqueurs, two of them, to cover off a category. The key phrase in this piece is direct lineage. So everyone talks about authenticity and how do you bring back a brand in an authentic way. And what we think the answer is direct lineage. So everything comes from the brand. So we don't say we're founder led. We don't say we're product led. We say we're brand led. So brand determines everything we do. And the next piece, and this is where we're getting into sort of cordials and liqueurs trends, is there a gap in the market, and is there a market in the gap, essentially? So when we were concepting these brands, we looked at the brand landscape. Obviously, there are some very dominant sort of major brands, Campari, Aperol, Cointreau, to name a few. Chartreuse is possibly another one, but maybe not as big as the other three. And we looked at where they came from. They came from largely continental Europe. So that's a point of difference already. We've got an American provenance and a British provenance brand. We looked at where they were in the premiumization cycle and where the category was, actually. So with gin and with rum and with vodka and everything else, these are all categories that are premiumized. Whereas we think this category was relatively nascent, and actually Saint Germain and Italicus, again, that Giuseppe launched, I think, in 2016. Is that right? Yeah, were sort of proved to us, certainly, that this concept was viable and that the world wanted premium liqueurs, modifiers, as well as premium base spirits. Again, looking at market share, looking at what made the big brands win. So drinking strategies, Aperol Spritz, Negroni for Campari, and sort of trying to take those learnings. And then the one I missed was growth. And what does growth in the category actually look like? Well, prior to COVID, it was very barbell. And what I mean by that is the big brands were growing exponentially based on their singular drinking strategies, whereas the smaller brands were declining largely. So you have this kind of barbell effect in the category. Cool. Then we looked at consumers and customers, and those are sort of consumers of cocktails and bartenders. We're obviously, we all know, going through the second golden age of cocktails, which is interestingly not just playing out on premise, it's playing out at home as well. We'll get to that. Drinking less but better, that just means value is going up where volume is going down. So people want more premium things. So in liqueurs and modifiers, we didn't see enough of that. There was some, again, Chartreuse, Italicus being great examples of that. Saint Germain, another one. But broadly speaking, the category had not premiumized. Lower ABV, almost the same thing as less but better, but not quite, which is more sessionable drinking. Modifiers and liqueurs do allow, we think, more sessionable drinking most of the time. Negronis are pretty heavyweight, but particularly spritz-style pours. And then, again, just our intuition around consumer behavior within the category, we felt the cordials and liqueurs were sort of this nascent category, and that not only was there going to be an adoption on premise, but also off premise at home. So the next thing we did, sort of in our process, we do is develop a sort of brand-led liquid with category and consumer in mind. So what that means is, rather than going, here's our product and let's fit a brand around it, it's here's our brand. What product do we sort of make that is essentially the liquid manifestation of that brand? We brought back Kwasi Amara with Kush, which is the original bitter, and we built an exotic orange bitter liqueur around that. We designed it specifically for spritz-style pours and champagne, but it's very versatile as well. And I get to that sort of paradox of versatility versus singular drinking strategy and how that fits into particularly with smaller brands. And pack, again, develop a branded pack with category and consumer in mind. So this is not develop a pack that looks like everything in the category. It's actually develop a pack that doesn't look like everything in the category and that consumers are going to want to have almost as a design piece at home as well. Cool. Drinking strategy. So Dr. Hostetta is obviously American provenance. So the Boulevardier was something we were aiming at. And again, with trends and categories, with trends within the liqueur category, you actually have to look at trends in base spirits as well, maybe, to decide what your drinking strategy is going to be at that point in time. So bourbon and rye and North American whiskeys generally having sort of fairly long moments, which still looks like it's got legs. So was there a bit of liqueur that went with, the bourbon premiumization, if you like, and was there a liqueur that was good enough to put with more premium bourbons? Again, Kush sort of tried not to put the bottles on the slide. So champagne fizz, spritz style pours were what we aimed at, but versatility is a thing as well. Cool. So I've sort of aimed it a little bit at the on-trade. We definitely don't consider ourselves just on-premise, but where we are now is sort of seeding in the on-premise mostly and starting to seed in a number of different countries. So I thought probably where I could be slightly more of use was on the on-trade and engagements. So what is your proposition? What is your ABV? What is your price point? If you are selling a more expensive cordial or liqueur modifier, how is that going to impact the sort of bar manager's perception of you? And know your points of difference. That can be provenance, that can be ABV, that can be just what your liquid does and the drink's coverage. And then portfolio effect. So for us, that's two brands. Giuseppe maybe can talk to that a little bit as well, because he's got Savoia, he's got Italicus. So just sort of having more than maybe rocking up at a bar with a single modifier liqueur is not as powerful as saying, we can fundamentally change your cocktail menu with these 2 products or 3 products or whatever it is. Know your venue. What's your venue typology? Again, we like to pitch both our brands to as many venues as we can, but we're not going to pitch a spritz to a speakeasy. So I think understanding what you're going into and having a singular drinking strategy, but also having drinking strategies that work in different places, particularly when you are young and maybe you don't know what your sort of hero pour is going to be. Who owns the back bar? So particularly in London where we're based, but also elsewhere, you can look at a bar as a bar, you can look at a bar as media space. And I think there's a continuum of where a bar will sit on within that range, and understanding who's essentially bought the cocktail menu and where you can fit. And I think the great thing for cordials and liqueurs is there is space between the base spirits of the majors, particularly if you have a unique proposition where you can actually still sort of fit yourself into an insert menu with a view to getting on a cocktail menu, etc. And I think that is a big benefit of cordials and liqueurs, whereas if you're a rum or a gin or a vodka, I think that's much harder. How can you help the venue? And this is a key thing. And the beauty, I'm sort of repeating myself, but the beauty of cordials and liqueurs is they can fundamentally change a cocktail menu, whereas a marginal rum, a marginal vodka, a marginal gin, a marginal whatever else probably won't be able to do that. So we think that we walk in and we say, well, we've looked at your menu, it's great, but you can have these upsells, these riffs, and these entire new cocktails. So we think that's one of the ways we can help the venue. Sort of covered this, but the paradox of a singular drink strategy versus versatility as a liqueur. Aperol Spritz, Campari, Cointreau, very, very singular drinking strategies. But the reality is, the Spritz movement may be coming to an end. You've kind of got to have you've got to be somewhat versatile. And the great thing is what we're getting is some great sort of innovative mixology type venues, and they're using the liqueurs in ways that we didn't expect, which is useful. So, the drink strategy should be a strong opinion, loosely held, probably. Cool merchandise, and what are incumbents in the space not doing, and how can you sort of differentiate yourself? And we like to call it leave mementos. The first thing is leave samples, leave full bottle samples. Don't leave 50 ml sort of, it's sort of a bit part. You want them to have the full experience of the brand and the liquid, and then merch and anything else you can just for share of mind for consumers and bartenders. So yeah, that is it. Please feel free to email me with any questions or anything else.